Hello everyone, my name is Zachary as always, and today I am talking about the movie Goldfinger. This is a James Bond film. This is the second James Bond movie, and after the success of the first movie, they were like, you know what we gotta do? We gotta bring back Sean Connery, and we gotta do this again because it worked the first time, and it worked the second time, if not 100 times better than it did the first time. Still had some kinks that needed to work out, but pretty good. Gotta say, pretty good. So, something I noticed when watching this movie is two things. One, James Bond, Bond is a lot creepier than he was in the first movie. He has some moments where he is, legitimately creepy around women, and it's just, it's just uncomfortable. Because he's just, he can get kind of weird, but, I don't know. I mean, they don't focus on that as much as they did in the first movie, which is fantastic. Anyhow, Sean Connery obviously has an amazing performance. For me, he is my most favorite James Bond of all time. To me, he is the ultimate James Bond. And yeah, that's what I think. So the main villain in this movie, I don't know why they chose him to be the villain. Because, when you first get introduced to him in the film, you just think he's one of those characters or one of those people you'll just see once and then you'll never see again. Just, never mention again, or maybe he's mentioned once. Intern. And then, but no, he's the main villain, and I was so surprised. I was like, are you serious? This is who we want as the villain? The main villain? Because in the first movie, we had this really intelligent man. He was rich. He had this whole underground operation. He was intelligent. He was doing stuff with, nuclear stuff. Everything, nuclear energy and all that. Then this guy, he's just a greedy middle-aged man. He's just a greedy middle-aged man who likes money. Which that's kind of what all the Bond villains are, but this one, I think this is one of my least favorite Bond villains, but not to say that he's terrible. Not saying it's bad at all. Something this James Bond movie does really well, and I think this is what something that this movie did well as the first movie did well, is with the sets. These sets are absolutely and utterly amazing. In Fort Knox in Kentucky, underground, there is this area right here where they're supposed to let out some sort of chemicals and everything. And they're trying to get a bunch of gold bars and stuff, and it's a heist at Fort Knox. But the set design here is amazing. You know what else the first James Bond movie did well? Is at the end of the movie, in that underground base, in that whole underground operation area, the set design and everything about it was absolutely pristine, amazing, fantastic. This movie does that pretty well it's done pretty well here too with an underground area. It does it well again. Utterly amazing. Probably not as epic as it was in the first movie, but also the second thing I noticed while watching this James Bond movie is that James Bond himself has less fighting in this movie. So remember how in the first movie James Bond had a lot more fight scenes. He would be, punching somebody more, throwing guns, punching, kicking, all that. In this movie, he has less of that, which in this case might be actually better, because the fighting was not as good as it was in the, as it is in this movie, because in the first movie, they didn't really know what they were doing. I don't feel they were kind of just experimenting, throwing it all and see what stuck. And that's also kind of what they were doing in here to influence the further James Bond movies in the future. And that's important too. And Yeah, so I do think it has improved. The green screen has improved a lot. Not a whole lot, but improved quite a bit. Because in the first one, I remember one of my least favorite parts of the movie, if not my least favorite part, was during a chase on a road. It would go from between a horrible green screen, an absolutely horrendous shaking green screen, to just a faraway shot of a car driving down the road. Like, it was absolutely terrible. It was awful. Here they have a scene just like that with Bond, and it's a little bit better. Can't say it's awful. In fact, that's a screenshot from that right here. That's the black and white picture. It wasn't awful, but you know. And you also have this guy right here who likes to throw a top hat, because that top hat basically turns into a gigantic spinning knife and can just absolutely wreck somebody with one hit. But yeah, the entire thing of this movie is this businessman trying to get into Fort Knox, get some gold, make some cash, and that's his whole thing. And eventually does. The U.S. government stops him. There's a lot more in this movie. I most definitely feel like this movie was definitely improved. And there was a lot to be improved on. I think the goofiest sequence is that there's this giant oil rig, right? And then Bond is like, and then you see this duck that's in a harbor next to it. And that duck just rises up out of the water. And it's James Bond in the scuba uniform, wearing a hat that has a duck on it. And then so it's just like so goofy. And the actual Goldfinger character, now, something that he does in this movie is he kidnaps Bond and he hooks him and he straps him to this chair bed thing. And there's this laser that wants to cut him in half, but then James Bond's like, "You can't do this without me." And the Goldfinger's like, "Oh yeah, that was kind of a stupid plan of me." And then he kind of just like lets him go. I don't know. So he has a little bit of a trap. That's a part of his whole underground operation. I feel like almost every James Bond movie has that or had that. I'm watching these in order. And something else, the Goldfinger title is only really incorporated into the film once, maybe twice, if you think about it. Because once, it's obviously Goldfinger because at the beginning of the movie, one person dies and is turned into gold. Or just gold spray paint. Or just gold makeup. Whatever you'd like to call it. Anyways, Goldfinger, she's dead. She turned into gold. Whatever. Suffocation. And then the guy wants gold, so he's like obsessed with gold because he's an evil businessman. Kind of goofy, but yeah, this movie, I could not imagine this movie like an action movie doing well with this plot now. But here it was okay because there wasn't a whole lot of movies like that, and I think that's kind of funny. That's improved on the first one. Sean Connery is obviously amazing. Also, the death scene for the villain in this movie, it's so goofy because he gets away from them gets away from the U.S. government by dressing up as a U.S. government official. And then when James Bond is on a plane to go meet with the president, he is confronted by him with a golden gun, Goldfinger. Coincidence? I think not. Anyways, so he almost gets shot, but then he breaks a window. And then he just, like, flies around in the cockpit, and it's like this green screen image, and then the actor is floating around, like, really goofily, and then he just, like, poofs out the window. It's just like trying to, basically, it's like the window is trying to poop out something, and that thing is trying to poop out is the villain of this movie, if that analogy makes sense. But then, he never gets to meet with the president. It's open-ended. We never get to figure it out. So, like, does he or does he not? I don't know. I mean, that's probably really important. He probably should have. But I don't know. If y'all enjoyed this video or any of my other content, please consider subscribing. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.